All right. Sean, thanks for being there. Lauren, I like that. Thanks for being attentive and ready. Katie, thanks. Now, you guys remember that yesterday we talked about characters that will be in our stories, and we talked about the ways that we create stories with external and internal characteristics. And as I walked around, I really noticed you guys doing that to really paint a picture of the character, so that I, as a reader, or anyone as a reader, could really have them in the movie in their mind, which is the whole idea. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the ways that we can change our story up so that we don't only have one version of our story, but that we can take an idea with the same characters and change it around in a ton of different ways, in many, many different ways. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read aloud a piece to you that I started. And what I loved about hearing Mrs. Fitz's story about Aaron is that I could totally picture my kids acting that way in the past, and even myself acting that way when I have gotten really angry, when I've lost control, when I've had a tantrum, whether as a kid or an adult. So this is a story that I started. I want you to listen to two things as I read it. First of all, the way I begin the story, because we know from Small Moments that you begin the story with either dialogue, action, or a quote, or a combination of those three things. So listen for that. Also, listen for the characterization, the ways I characterize both externally and internally my character. You mean he's working late again? Paul almost cried with disgust. I'm afraid so, sweetie, came his mom's apologetic reply. What's with his new job anyway? He's never home anymore. I know, Paul. I know it's hard on you and your sister. Believe me, I know. But can't he at least come to one of my games? I mean, the season's almost over and he hasn't been to any. Your father does the best he can. He's got a ton of work to do with this new job. I know, came Paul's annoyed reply. He could feel the disgust rising in his voice, and he knew he shouldn't go there. But the hurt just wouldn't go away. I wish Dad could just make one game. One game is all I ask. Paul, we've been through this before, came the exasperated reply from Mom. I know, I know, I know! You always say that, Mom. You always say that! Paul turned and ran from the dining room, slamming his fist against the wall as he went. His mom could tell he had always been the sensitive one of her two kids. Whenever anyone needed someone to play with, Paul was always there. If a friend was over, Paul was always more than happy to share toys, bikes, and snacks. He seemed to just know what people wanted, and had the ability to fill that need with an ease that made others feel relaxed in a way that was beyond his years. His inner strength was not matched, however, by his appearance. His red hair and freckles had always been a target for other kids' teasing. Slightly overweight? Paul knew people called him fat behind his back. He didn't really care about the clothes he wore, and was more than content to wear whatever he could scrounge in his drawers, half asleep, before rushing down to breakfast in the morning. That's the beginning. And I just stopped there because I wanted you to notice that I started with what? Tell me all together.
Dialogue.
And I also, if you could see the external characteristics I started with first and then went to internal after that, which was actually the reverse. I started with internal, right, and then I went to external after that, which is very deliberate on my part. I wanted the reader to get a sense right away who this person was, which is really important. Hooks the reader in, and I know that they want to know more, which is what I've seen in a lot of your stories that I've been reading on your wikis, which has been pretty amazing. What I want to show you at this point, though, is I want you to think about the hero's journey. And you all, we've been studying a lot with Fitz Brown kids, but this should be really familiar to you now. It's over here. I'm going to pass out your copies of it for the first story that you started, so that you have a copy of it, because later I'm going to ask you to keep this in mind as you write your fiction pieces, okay? But there it is for your reference. And you'll notice as I share more and more of the story with you throughout the course of this unit that you'll see elements of the hero's journey, all 12 steps, just like I've been seeing elements of the hero's journey in your writing too. Now what I'm going to show you is that there are a few possibilities. I'm going to show you a couple different possibilities to change the story around, because the part that I read you just now that had the beginning, and then it had the internal and external characteristics, it could be changed. Not only that, but I'm going to share with you kind of an outline or a sketch of my first version. Could you just click over in that Word doc at the bottom that says 515 thick?
The pen works, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Like the beginning?
Scroll up, please. Okay, now this is what I read you. You mean he's working late again? Paul almost cried with disgust. If you could scroll down, please. And then you get to version 1, just big version 1 at the top. This is basically my hero's journey. At home, feeling sorry for himself. Number 2, which is the call to adventure. He meets a friend. Now, I haven't read you this yet, because it's in the future of the story. He meets a friend named Ted, going through the same situation with an absent parent. Okay, so it's like you have a guy, two kids whose dad's never around, because dad works all the time or is just gone. Number 3, which corresponds to number 3 on the hero's journey, refusal of the call. Ted seems mean and makes fun of other kids. Number 4, Mrs. Smithington, which is probably going to be a teacher in this story, pulls Ted aside after class, talks to him. And that was meeting with the mentors. The teacher serves as a mentor role. Could be a coach, could be some other wise adult, or maybe even a friend, an older person. Number 5 is crossing the first threshold. Goes to the movies with Ted. So Ted and Paul start to spend some time together. Number 6, test allies and enemies. Kids make fun of Paul for being friends with Ted. 7, the approach to the inmost cave. Ted has dinner at Paul's house. Number 8, the supreme ordeal. Paul tells Ted about his absent dad, and then Ted suggests that Paul compose an email to his dad, and Paul's afraid to send it. Number 9, the can't read my own writing. Reward, seizing the prize. Paul sends the email, and Dad reads it and responds positively, and he says he'll make Paul's next game. Number 10, the road back. Paul lets Ted know what happened and motivates Ted to write his own email. And then number 11, which is the threshold crossing or the resurrection, Paul realizes that he needs to be honest and direct with his feelings, even if it's scary. So it's like you saw in the Finding Joe movie. It's about conquering your fears. It's like not worrying about your fears and transforming. Number 12, which is the return with the elixir. Paul's dad promises to make at least half of Paul's games no matter what. Now, that's kind of a nice, almost like a Disney-esque ending. It's like a nice happy ending. But that's not how it always goes in real life. Even if you don't have a happy ending in real life, that doesn't mean you still don't have a hero's journey. Because just because things don't always work out, you still have people, all the characters, that are on some kind of journey. In this case, I'm focusing on the main character of Paul. Would you please scroll up? This is version number 2. What's in red is where I have changed the story on purpose. Why? Because maybe I don't like version 1. Maybe it's too easy, or maybe it's too predictable. Maybe I want something that's a little bit different or a little bit more real life. So I'm going to give you guys just about 30 seconds to scan through version 2 and read it on your own. Ready? And I'm going to just enlarge this so you can see a little bit better. Go. Read it.
How many numbers?
Kind of different? It's totally the same. Thumbs down. Okay. Look at this one. This is another version. This is version 3. And I want you to read this in silence for about 30 seconds, as much of it as you can in that amount of time. Go. Sorry, I just got to put it on one page for you. The point is that, you know, it's important for writers to try out different ways that a story could go and to revise it lots of times. Don't be happy with your first draft. Don't think, oh, I'm done, I've got it, it's perfect, it's awesome. Challenge yourself as a writer to make changes. Challenge yourself as a writer to change it up constantly before you decide this is the version I definitely want. Okay? So here's what I need you guys to do. I want you to just think in your head for about 10 seconds. I want you to think of your story that you are currently working on, your current hero's journey story that follows the hero's journey. Just think about it and picture the character in your mind. Ready? Think. I want you to turn and face your partner knee to knee and eye to eye in 3 or less. Ready? Go. 3, 2, and 1. Now here's what I want you to do. The following people are going to start off. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and I want you to think of an alternative version to your story, and I want you to tell it out loud like a storyteller would. Tell it out loud, tell it in the air like a storyteller. Andrew, Kristen, Bella, Nathan, Chance, Ian, Caroline, David, Izzy, Katie, Michael, Emmanuel, and Felix. I want you to tell it in a quiet voice so I shouldn't be able to hear you too well. And ready? You have 30 seconds and then I will stop you. Ready? Tell it. Go.
Make a time machine and he's like in this like or whatever where there's this giant city and these people they're like controlling like something and he doesn't like it and he wants to stop it. So he joins the military and he fights
him and his other pilot jet have to get across.
What a great story to
I'm so these people come.
Thank you. Now,
I'm good at
I
storytelling.
realize that not everybody had a chance to share. Only half of you shared, and that's okay. Sometimes only half of you guys will get a chance to share. But those of you that did share, if you made at least one change to the version you're writing, give me a thumbs up. At least one change. Show me with your fingers 1, 2, or 3 or more. Who made at least one? In just telling it right now. 2 or 3 or more? Hands down. You'll find if you really allow yourself that you can do that. You can make those changes, and that's exactly what you want to do when you're writing. So basically, writers, today and every day, whenever you want to write fiction, remember to have at least three possible storylines, 3 possible journeys for your main character, your protagonist, your hero, okay? Set a goal to write at least one more version of your story today. So you guys are going to start writing in a few minutes, and when you do, you're going to write all the way until 150. Meryl, I want you guys to remember, it's really important that you try a new version. You might say, Mr. Joe, I tried it, but I really still like my original version. Fine. But today, what you need to do is you have to make sure, whatever you're writing on, Word doc, Google Doc, that you show me evidence that you have made some changes from your new story. Now, do you have to write an entire story, like write out a story? No. 1 through 12 would be fine. Just like I did this here. This isn't kind of a graphic organizer. It's kind of a form of note-taking, if you will. So you can just write 1 to 12. Now, some of this will be the same of what you've already written. Easy. Some of it will be different. But I challenge you to write at least one version that's different. Okay? Now, what I'm going to show you is this. Sorry. It's basically indicated here is your task. Let's do this. So you can see. Please look at the screen. Write at least one more version of your story that's different from the one you're currently working on. Remember to post your sacred writing time that you just completed before our mini lesson and your story to the wiki, and label the post. Some of you are posting and not labeling the date, or you're not putting the date, or you're not telling me what you're writing, so I can't figure it out. A lot of you are writing amazing stuff, but you're forgetting to post it to the wiki, or you're forgetting to email the link, so I need you to make sure you do that. And finally, number 3, make sure you save time to email the link to me. If you totally understand what your task is for today in 6th grade workshop, please give me a thumbs up so we're clear. All right, stand up in 3 or less, please. 1, 2, 3. I need you to get back to